So before we get started on this week's episode, let me tell you about our presenting sponsor, Hunt to Harvest. Now, Hunt to Harvest is back with us for our second season here at 3 Wide. And right now, if you head over to hunttoharvest.com, you can check out their new spring collection of shirts, both in turkey hunting, duck hunting, and several fishing options. They also still have their mystery box special going on where you can get 3 shirts chosen at random sent to you for just $33. So you don't want to miss out on that deal. Head on over to huntharvest.com. Click on the mystery box option there at the top, select your size, and when you go to add to cart and check out, be sure to enter that promo code RADNEY18923 so you can get even more savings at checkout. And this is all at huntharvest.com. Hey everyone, Radney here with 3 Wide to bring you our reaction to yesterday's Cup race at COTA, where Tyler Reddick got his first career win with 2311 Racing, and what was a very dominant day for Tyler. He had the strongest car all day, all weekend really. He was very strong in practice and qualifying, and even though he was with the top car, he still did have to work for it. He had to catch up and battle with drivers like William Byron, Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain, Alex Bowman, and also had to fight through 3 overtime restarts after really the race went kind of chaotic there at the end. But a solid day for Tyler, and this has been building up over the past couple weeks. He had a rough start to the season, and like I said in my preseason show, I think once Tyler gets his feet under him with this car, with the Toyota, with 2311, he's going to go on quite a run. And this is definitely a good start to it. He's been probably the top Toyota so far in the garage, on the track, over the past couple weeks, and I could see him probably getting a few more wins before we get to the playoffs, putting himself in a real nice spot to make a deep run this year. But as I said, the race kind of went haywire there at the end. This was the first weekend where there was going to be no stage breaks after each stage, no cautions. NASCAR was just going to keep the race going and award the points as they run. And I feel like this is an overall win for NASCAR. This was a great call. It worked wonderful for the road courses. A lot of fans have been and are still calling for stage breaks to just be done away with, period. Keep the stages and dish out the points, but don't throw the caution. I'm not ready to jump on that boat where we need to get rid of stage breaks anywhere else. I think it's perfect for road courses. It cuts out a lot of the run time. You can turn this into a lot of post-race coverage if everything works out right, which a lot of fans have been calling for. Cuts out the caution times. It's a win overall. I could see the argument for super speedways possibly, but at the end of those stages at super speedways, these drivers get so chaotic. They're racing so hard to get these points. Most of the time there's a crash before they even take the green checkered, or if they kept it under green, didn't do the stage breaks, I could see them crashing going into turn 1 because everybody's jam-packed and they're trying to get into the top 10. I don't think we need to go to it on short tracks or your mile and a halves. I feel like it's good that we, keep everyone bottled up there, give a chance, to kind of reset the order. But at these road courses, it kind of felt like a throwback race. Whereas we just ran the race straight through. It allowed pit strategy to become a hot topic once again throughout the race. Pit strategy is a big reason why Zane Smith won Saturday's truck race. And it's been so long since we've seen that on the Xfinity and Truck Series side. These races are so short and the stages break them up to the point where, there's no real strategy to it. So I think it's a big win for NASCAR. As I said, keep it here at the road courses. Don't expand on it yet. Too much of a good thing can still be a bad thing. So let's just pump the brakes on that. And 95% of the Cup race was great. Pit strategy was playing a big part of it at the end. It was a big question of who had enough fuel, who was going to have to save. I think Tyler Reddick was about a lap short. Ross Chastain, Daniel Suarez, who were in the top 5, they looked to be about the best on the fuel strategy side of it. About 3/4 to half a lap short is what I heard them saying. So it was working out perfectly, and it was going to be, I feel like, a great ending to the weekend. But unfortunately, then chaos kind of reared its head around the corner, and we started having cautions. And with that, late in the race, going into turn 1 at COTA, just creates chaos where drivers are fanning out 5-6 wide going into turn 1. Crashing, and while normally that wouldn't cause a caution because the track is so big, drivers can get rolling, it was leaving debris on the track, and that's where the cautions were having to be thrown, is because of the debris on the track. And with these unlimited overtime restarts, it was getting to the point where it's looking like a circus. I believe it was 3 overtime restarts, and I don't know what the right answer is. I don't want to see overtimes go away. I think that's very popular, in my opinion, for NASCAR, that at least they're putting in the effort to get to the green flag finish. But I mean, what would be better? Unlimited attempts, where if you get too far into it, it's, you're now becoming a laughing stock instead of a serious, stock car race. Or if you have, number it to 3 attempts, well, by the 3rd attempt, at this kind of track, everybody's just going to dive bomb into turn 1, and it'll be what it'll be. So it's not a good spot to be in. It's a tough call to make. I don't know what the right decision is. I think unlimited right now might be the best call to make, just because, as we saw with 3 overtime restarts, it was still chaotic, but they were still able to get to the end without going further. 3 overtime restarts, I feel like that could really taint the end at these kind of races and give a hollow victory to whoever gets the victory. But yeah, it was a rough ending to an otherwise great race. Don't let this ending take away from the action that we got to see, the great racing we saw. I know a lot of people were talking about, well, this is going to spread out the field. It's going to, fan them out. It's not going to be as exciting. That's exciting to me, mainly because we're building up to the excitement. We're building up through pit strategy, green flag pit stops. One mistake will, how much is that going to cost you? We saw Austin Cindric, who had been running up in the top 10, top 5 most of the day, have some issues on a pit stop, and that pretty much ended his chances for having a good solid finish and maybe even a chance at a win. So I'm a big fan. Like I said, let's just keep this no stage breaks at the road courses for the time being. And another reason this felt like a big throwback event, not just the no stage breaks with the cautions, but also all the road course ringers we have in the field. You had Jenson Button and Kimi Räikkönen, 2 stars from the Formula One series, over racing this weekend, as well as Connor Daly, and you also had Jordan Taylor filling in for the injured Chase Elliott, who is a star on the WeatherTech IMSA series. And he had a very impressive day. He qualified 4th, looked to be the most impressive out of all the road course ringers. His finish may not show it. He finished back in the 24th, I believe it was 21st to 24th, somewhere in there he finished. But he was able to finish in the top 10 of the first stage. He qualified 4th. And it's just these ringers, I don't think we're expecting the aggressiveness of these drivers on the restarts. They weren't ready for everyone to fan out and just jam it into one little corner. So they handled it just fine. Jenson Button, he finished the best out of all the road course ringers in 18th, driving for Rick Ware Racing. So a good finish for him. He was complaining about how hot the cars were. He was needing water. There at the end of the race, he was calling for water for his crew as soon as he got to pit road. So I'm sure it wasn't all that pleasant of an experience for him. He was talking about the lack of respect, it seemed, for drivers, the aggressiveness of them, especially there at the end, everyone going for one spot into turn 1. It'll be interesting to see. Maybe will be back this season or maybe next for another road course event. Anytime we can get these Formula One stars, IndyCar stars, drivers from these other racing series, it brings more eyes to the sport, and that makes the sport better, in my opinion. Now, as far as Kimi Räikkönen, he looked to be in a pretty good spot to get a solid finish after that caution. Just past 10 to go, he was one of the drivers that stayed out up in the top 5, but he just got shoved to the back and never really was much of a factor. But that 91 car, the Project 91 that is being done by Trackhouse Racing, they did say over the weekend, they have plenty of funding. There will be more events for that car this season. They haven't announced anything as far as sponsorship or driver lineup, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Kimi come back for maybe another race or 2 before the season's over. One of the big takeaways from this race was the lack of the big name NASCAR drivers that either weren't much of a factor in the race altogether or were taken out early and never had a chance to have a solid day. Mainly Jimmy Johnson, who added this race to his list after you had drivers like Button and Räikkönen announce that they're coming to this race. You had Johnson throw his name in the hat. He was taken out before they even completed the first lap. And that's a shame to see, because you had this team prepare this car and everybody travel out for this race to not even complete one lap on the track. And Jimmy was very disappointed by that. it'll be interesting to see if he gets in any more, when his next race is. I know he's scheduled to do the Chicago Street Course, I believe also the Coke 600, but for him, a big name like Jimmy, 7-time champion, to not even be able to complete a full lap, that's a disappointing finish, not only for Jimmy, but also fans of the sport. Another driver was Ryan Blaney, who in my fantasy short, I said put him in the garage on your fantasy lineup because he's just about a guarantee for a top 10 at road courses. They're one of his stronger track types, but he really wasn't much of a factor. I don't know if I jinxed him or what happened, or if his car just wasn't set up the way he liked it, but he qualified back in the back, was able to survive that lap 1 crash that took out Jimmy, but never was much of a factor. He barely could break into the top 20 at times. He finished 21st. Very uncharacteristic day for Ryan at road courses. Also, his good friend Bubba Wallace, he was taken out in a lap 10 incident where you had him, Kyle Larson, Brad Keselowski, Eric Jones involved, getting crossed up, and I believe it was a broken oil line that took Bubba out. But it's been a rough couple weeks for Bubba. And in his comments back in the garage, he made the comment about how rough it's been and that the driver needs replacing. And this is just Bubba and his personality. He gets very hard on himself, but I feel like he has a good group around him at 2311 Racing. They'll be able to kind of pick him up. Hey, keep your head up. We know the speed's there. We know we can get the finishes. We just got to survive and keep the car clean. Let's just try and knock out some good solid finishes and get momentum rolling our way, much like his teammate Reddick has done. And, Chase Elliott, he was very much the same way early in his career, especially before he got to winning races, where he was very hard on himself, that everything, this was the mistake he made. It was his fault, so on and so forth. So for Bubba, this is just how he handles things. This is how he deals with it. But I have no doubt that he'll be able to bounce back, and he can start, putting in some solid races. I don't know. Richmond may not be the best place to do it, but if he can come out of Richmond with a top 15 finish, like I said, just try and slowly build that confidence up and that momentum so that by the time we roll around to, say, a Talladega or a Martinsville, even Martinsville coming up here in a couple weeks, that can do a lot of good for Bubba. A couple other drivers we had taken out. You had Ryan Preece, who finished 10th in stage 1 and had run in the top 10 for a good chunk of the race. He was taken out with a crash, to which he immediately said, what a bunch of hacks out here. And I can't argue too much against that with the way the drivers were being at the end of the race. Just the lack of respect among them going into turn 1 and causing just accident after accident, chain event after chain event. It got to where it was just kind of not even comical. It was honestly getting to where it was embarrassing to watch. So for Preece, another solid day ruined due to nothing of his own control. And also AJ Allmendinger, who was one of the favorites coming into this race weekend, nearly won last year before being knocked out of the way in the final corner by Ross Chastain. He got stuck in an accident there at the end. That ruined his day. And this was the kind of race that could really kickstart AJ's season. Him and his team have all these road courses circled, and they look at it as prime opportunity to pick up points, stage wins, and even race wins to get themselves in the playoffs. So AJ was there. He was in the running. He was having in line for probably a good top 5 finish at the end of the day, but unfortunately with the damage he received, it ended his day prematurely. But the thing that caught everybody's attention and everybody's eye happened after the checkered flag. You had Daniel Suarez, who was right there with Ross most of the day, was a race-winning contender, up in the top 5. Before all these cautions hit, looked to be him and Ross. It would be settled between those two. They were really good as far as fuel. And once these cautions hit, like a lot of these front runners, it kind of ended their days, with these restarts into turn 1. Suarez, he was taken out going into turn 1 in kind of a chain reaction event where he was hit by Bowman, who I believe was hit by Chastain, and Chastain was hit by Briscoe, I think is what he said. And that was the thing, it's all chain reaction events. It wasn't just one driver going in there and taking out Suarez. But Suarez was not happy about it, and coming to pit road at the end of the race, he first went up there and sped up to Chastain, who he knocked out of the way coming into pit road, then went up to Bowman, gave him a good hit from behind, And I think this is where we're going to see NASCAR step in, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Suarez get probably a fine and a points penalty. After last year at Texas with William Byron spinning, Hamlin under caution, Ty Gibbs and Ty Dillon tying up on pit road under caution with pit crew officials right there. NASCAR's not going to take this laying down. I think that this does call for a monetary and a points penalty. And you just cannot be that reckless coming on the pit road at the end of a race. There's so many more people on pit road, officials lining up the cars, pit crew members gathering up all their equipment and getting ready to load up. TV, media, everyone's out there trying to get interviews. It's not smart to go in there at any time, whether it's before, during, or after the race, and make contact with somebody on pit road in this way. And to me, I think if you have a problem with the driver for how something was handled at the end of a race or at some point during a race, don't get on pit road and knock each other around. Don't even do it on the racetrack. Go down pit road, get out your car, and go meet with the driver you got a problem with and handle it however it needs to be, whether it's words, pushing, hitting, whatever it needs to be. Don't go up there making your cars weapons. People at the shop work way too hard on it for you to be doing that. Also, safety deal. What happens if he had went up there as they're going around the curve on the pit road, and when he hits Bowman loses control of his car and he spins out and hits who knows, and what happens to that person? Then it's an even bigger deal, and your anger just cause someone to get injured or possibly worse. So Suarez, he's got to take a breath. I understand these guys get mad at the end of a race, but to me, this was really an unnecessary event. Not only the safety aspect, but like I said, on the track, you can be, yes, you were hit by Bowman, and he was hit by Chastain, but who hit Chastain, if anybody, descending into Suarez? These chain reaction events, it's hard to pinpoint on just one person. It's not like it's at your normal, say, Richmond this weekend, and you go into turn one and Bowman just clears you out for position. That's completely different. And it's just really unnecessary. Suarez, he's pushed around, especially Sunday, his fair share of people. But, then it happens to you, and you're not a fan of it, and you're going to go out there and do something stupid like that. So I'm sure Daniel will get a talking to from his team if he hasn't already. NASCAR, probably either tomorrow or Wednesday, they will announce the penalty there. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Suarez probably take a few points. And you need to do that to send that message to these drivers that, hey, we're not going to tolerate anything going on with these cars on pit road. Get out and handle it face to face. And that'll wrap up this week's episode. As always, thank you for joining me and watching along. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button so you can know when our new videos drop. We're going to keep doing these post-race reactions. That will drop either Sunday night after the race or possibly as late as Monday night, depending on how my schedule falls. Also, you can head to the link below in the description and subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcast from. And we release our podcast weekly on Tuesday nights, going over all the action from the race weekend, trucks, Xfinity, and Cup Series. So you don't want to miss those episodes. Don't forget also to check out our sponsor, hunttoharvest.com. Let them know we sent you and enjoy the selection of your hunting apparel there. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their week. We will meet back same time next week and go over all the action from Richmond International Raceway.